It is time yet again for another episode of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash. The Dank Pod-Stash is officially sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. It's time to get hashtag Boogaloo ready and in fighting shape. Greg Papanicholas is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to anarchyliftingcoach.com and learn more about Greg's work. When you're ready to get signed up and get fit, go to gregpapanicholas.clickfunnels.com/opt-in and get started on your path to health. You'll be able to find those links in the description. I'm in Project Sparta now. I'm already feeling awesome, getting stronger, losing weight, and loving the personalized menu and workouts. It's really fucking sweet. Don't be that guy that only sits and talks about change, whether it's your health or even the Boogaloo. Get up, start learning, drilling, and training. And one of the most important parts of prepping, no matter what for, is your physical health. Get to anarchyliftingcoach.com now and get after it. We also have a special offer for our listeners from friend of the show, author and content creator Shane Radliff of Liberty Under Attack Publications. You can take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10. Just go to libertyunderattack.com where you can find books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. Current books include, but are not limited to, #Agora, Second Realm book on strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, A Strategy for Self-Liberation. They also offer assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook production. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. One more shout-out to Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use their beard oil and beard balm, and I love them. They are amazing. Now let's jump into episode 75 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash with Vermin Supreme Vice President elect runner. I don't know exactly how to say it, but we're going to find out. Spike Cohen. Great guy, great show. Enjoy.
Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Pod-Stash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Pod-Stash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Pod-Stash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Pod-Stash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. Welcome back to another episode of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash. This is episode 75, and I'm joined once again by Spike Cohen. He can't see it. I sent it to him before, but there's a special meme just for Spike now that he's VP of the Vermin Supreme campaign. You'll see it on the screen if it's too small watching on your phone or something. It's a cake. It's a congratulations cake. It says, "You're dead to us. We hope you fail." It's when your friend announces that they're running for office. So we're going to talk about that today, among other things.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, of course. You know, nothing but the utmost support. But before we do, I'm going to let Spike talk a little bit about himself, reintroduce him to y'all if you didn't see the first episode, and tell us about the Vermin Supreme campaign before we go on the attack.
Hey, everybody. I'm Spike Cohen. If you haven't seen me before on the show, first of all, thank you for tuning in. I am the co-owner of Muddied Waters Media. I am the host of My Fellow Americans. I am the co-host of the Muddy Waters of Freedom with my co-host and heterosexual life partner, Matt Wright. And I am also now, I have sold out my soul and decided to try to change the system from the inside by joining the Vermin Supreme campaign as his vice presidential running mate.
There it is. Changing the system from the inside. And so, you know, shit like that,
Yep.
stuff you say like that, and there's a whole lot of sarcasm going along with the Vermin Supreme campaign, and I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, it gets me pretty often. It gets me a little triggered. So I think it's funny, but we're gonna go more in depth on that a bit too. You know, what it means to be an anarchist and running for office or even involved with the party or anything like that. And yeah, and I think we reset this up to talk after I had sent you some questions on Messenger about your feelings of anarchy and running for president and stuff like that. So why don't you lay out your feelings on it, and I'll ask you some questions.
Okay, cool. So here's the basic thing. Nick and I agree that this system is an absolute joke. It has no true authority. People that are running for office are basically running for a position of trying to control you. There are some who say they want to control you just a little bit less, or maybe a whole lot less, but ultimately they're all saying the same thing. We want to, rob, kidnap, and murder you as we see fit, but maybe less than the other guy or maybe more than the other guy. So we agree on that. We might disagree a little on how much, if there is such a thing as defensive voting, but we can suss that out as I suspect we will shortly. But ultimately, the reason I am running with a man, for those who don't know, Vermin Supreme is a man who wears a boot on his head. He has been running for president since, I believe, 1992 on a platform of giving everyone ponies, making everyone brush their teeth, unlimited zombie power by putting all of these zombies from the zombie apocalypse on a giant hamster wheel, dangling brains in front of them for unlimited power, clean energy, by the way, clean, renewable, cheap, free energy, and also going back in time to kill baby Hitler. And so this is a very serious platform that I've joined to try to, as again, changing the system from the inside with the idea that this is a compromise measure. I ultimately would like to see anarchy in our time. I would like to see a time that people are free and we get rid of, we dismantle the oppressive institutions that impose their coercion on us. In the meantime, I do think that it is a solid strategy to try to make compromises on our principles with sociopaths who want to enslave all of us. And so I have joined this campaign with the idea of saying, if we're going to give you something for free, let it be a pony. And if we're going to have a nationalized energy plan, let's have it involve zombies. And if we're going to go overseas to kill boogeymen that our intelligence services create for us, let's just go back in time and kill the biggest boogeyman of all. And also you have to brush your teeth.
Mandatory toothbrushing, correct?
Mandatory toothbrushing.
Yes. So I real quick wanted to touch on the going back in time to kill baby Hitler, and I saw something that might be an even more worthy cause for going back in time. Someone was talking about, what would you do if you could go back in time? And another person answered they'd kill baby Hitler. And they said, well, why would you do that when you could just go back in a lifeguard outfit and stop Steve Irwin from going out on the reef that fateful day when he met the stingray?
I saw that. I saw that. And that's definitely, once we've harnessed time travel, the limits there are no limits. We can really do anything. And we're not concerned about the consequences of what that will change in the future or in the present, because we're back there at this point. So it really doesn't matter. So it's like Quantum Leap, but with no consequences for me and Vermin personally. I don't know what to tell the rest of you, but we're going to be fine. I've actually added to our plan, and I'll talk about this later. I've added to Vermin's 4-point plan with my own 10-point plan. And one of the points of that plan is also going back in time to kill baby Woodrow Wilson. Which ultimately makes killing baby Hitler unnecessary, but we're still going to kill him too, because screw that. Who likes baby Hitler? Let's be serious.
Nobody.
Nobody likes him.
See, this is where I get sucked in to the whole Vermin Supreme Cohen campaign thing, because it's just hilarious. I love the jokes and stuff like that, and it's hard to be mad about the idea of running for office when it's so funny.
Who can be mad at this? Right, exactly.
One more point from the campaign I wanted to address. I think I've heard, I don't know if it's an official point of the campaign, but is that Vermin wants to take your guns and then do something else that sounds better, right?
Give you better ones.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to take your guns, but we're going to give you much better guns. And in fact, another point of my 10-point platform is to arm all of you, because you're all going to get ponies. You don't have to like it, but you are going to get the ponies. And there are two types of people: the people who want a pony, and the people who are just going to have to make some adjustments in their life because you're getting a pony regardless. What I'm doing to sweeten that pot is we're actually going to be adding to your pony. We're going to be arming your pony with a 20 millimeter Vulcan cannon. I have had people ask me if instead of a Vulcan cannon, they can get a 40 millimeter, automatic grenade launcher. And I've said, listen, I will try to see what I can do, but I don't want to promise anything unrealistic. Ultimately, this all depends on what we can get through this obstructionist do-nothing Congress.
That's right. Yeah, and it's going to be hard to approve funding because most of that money is going towards military already. So you're going to have to move some stuff around.
Well, our idea is ultimately the authorization of use of military force that they keep they keep renewing, that basically gives the president massive amounts of authority on how to use the troops, and even some spending authority, as we just saw where Trump diverted defense money to building a wall in the middle of nowhere. What we're going to actually be diverting a lot of these funds to your pony cannons.
Nice. And it's a lot of fun jokes and stuff like that too, but Vermin's doing really well, not just on social media but in the polling, right?
So we just won the Massachusetts primary. Now, these are all non-binding primaries. Okay. The Libertarian Party system works a lot differently. These aren't binding primaries. They're basically popularity contests that the taxpayers pay for. So it's a fun thing that we're doing. Again, we're changing the system from the inside. So it's hey, listen, people put us on the ballot, so we're on the ballot. Vermin won in Massachusetts. He's won this was not a taxpayer one. This was just a straw poll that they did at the state convention in New Hampshire, but that counts as a primary apparently. He's in second place in North Carolina and is in second place, and they have 26 days to continue counting absentee or mail-in ballots, and he's been gaining on the number one person, so we may end up winning in California. Wow. So I mean, we have a legit, this is an actual legit thing that's happening, which is hilarious, because one of the most fun parts of this campaign is going to conventions and talking to people about cheesy bread and badgers. But this part of my plan is I'm a badger. I don't really elaborate on it. If anyone asks me, I say it's literally just a badger. But I talk about the badger and I talk about cheesy bread, giving everyone cheesy bread, and we're going to go back and kill Woodrow Wilson. Half the crowd is cheering, and the other half is just hating life. Yes. Right? Like, they're just like, why are you standing up here at our convention where we're trying to, build this thing and, take over the government, so that we'll be completely different than everyone that came before us. And because we're different than every other human being ever. And you're coming here and making, a mockery of this. But the other half gets it. And sometimes it's more than half. They get it. They get that this is a system that deserves ridicule and mockery. That the reason that we're doing this, the reason that two otherwise reasonable, smart, not insane grown men are going around doing this song and dance shtick is to say that, how much more absurd is it to have a man with a boot on his head telling you have to brush your teeth than to have a man with a piece of metal on his chest telling you that you have to wear a seatbelt? Right. And which one of those is actually a threat to you? One is, ridiculous because, he's wearing a thing and telling you to do something, but we're not actually going to hurt you if you don't brush your teeth. We're pretending we're going to, but we're not actually going to do anything to you if we do. That man with the piece of metal that's going to ruin your life over helping you with a seatbelt, he'll hurt you. Yeah. He'll give you a fine. He will throw you in jail if you resist. He will make your life as miserable as it absolutely takes to coerce you into doing a behavior that, yes, it's a good idea to wear a seatbelt. It's also none of anyone's business, just like brushing your teeth. So that's the point of why we're doing what we're doing. And yes, we are doing, I'm not sure I'd call us the front runners, but we're definitely in contention. And there is a not zero chance that we could end up getting the nomination. It all comes down to how things go in May in Austin, if the coronavirus didn't kill us all between them.
Well, that would be I would be very happy to see that outcome within the LP, because watching people just absolutely freak out over Vermin doing so well and screech about running serious candidates, and the dumpster fire that the LP has really, it just started. The flames are getting so much bigger lately, and I love it so much, the fighting and stuff like that. And I know it sounds cruel, But the people who want to run the serious candidates and stuff like that, that's more of a joke to me than anything. This feels like a better use of the Libertarian Party. And now that's a question too, because I've brought this up with other libertarians, that the point of the Libertarian Party originally was to make a mockery of the system, and I've been corrected or agreed with on that. So what's the deal with that?
You know, the what is it? The statement of principles, or the what's the word I'm looking for? The opening charter of the Libertarian Party is to challenge the cult of the omnipotent state. And the meaning behind that, because the Libertarian Party was formed by sort of an alliance between a bunch of fed up constitutionalists / minarchists, people who want, what their idea of a tiny government is, and anarchists who believe that there shouldn't be any government. In saying that, we all are fellow travelers, in agreeing that we need to go in the opposite direction of where we are going to, at least less government and maybe even no government. And that was the purpose of it, was to mock the system and put up candidates. And I shouldn't say, I don't know if it was to mock the system or to just say this system as your current choices are, none of them are good. None of your options are good, and we need to be completely disbanding this thing. Ultimately, any political party, their purpose, or at least their stated purpose, is to contest and try to win elections. But there is an element in a subversive party like this, or a party that's supposed to be subversive, that it is an insurgent thing. The idea that we are running a presidential and vice presidential ticket with the knowledge that our high watermark has been 3.25% in the last election, which was, I think, more than double the percent that they've ever gotten before, is in itself kind of an insurgent FU to the rest of the system, as opposed to this, when we're president, we're going to do this. So when you said, running serious candidates is more of a joke to you, in some way I agree. I respect a lot of the people that are running more serious campaigns, because they agree probably 98% with what you and I agree with. They think that the electoral process of actually getting into office and getting other libertarians into Congress is going to be a way to pare down and make incremental steps. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I tend to think we're probably not. But I also think that at the very least, and we can get into this more, that it can be used as a tool for people that would listen to people that they give credibility to because they're running for office, to spread this, insurgent message that we don't actually need government. But I do think that when someone gets up and starts talking about what they're going to do as president, with the knowledge that their party does not, we're considering a high watermark or the victory to be 5%. If we can get 5%, which gets us minor party status, we can call that a victory. Okay, fair enough. But then why are we talking about what we're going to do when we're president if we're still 45% away from getting elected?
Right.
So, but again, when someone asks, what do you think your chances are to win? I say 100%, because, when you're running, you run to win. But there's running to win, and then there's running to win and promising everyone cheesy bread while you run to win. So you can take what you want from that.
It's a better promise. It's a more realistic promise than getting in and immediately destroying the government, repealing everything. Like, that's never going to fucking happen. That's one of the dumbest things, one of the dumbest platforms out there, in my opinion.
I could probably succeed in getting everyone cheesy bread. If we really actually got elected, I could probably go to Congress and say, guys, listen, I know everyone's a little upset. 2 words, cheesy bread. We're looking at maybe like $600 million to make everyone on earth in the country happy. So yeah, no, you're right. No, that's actually about the most realistic part of our platform that we have, is that, you get free cheesy bread with the purchase of any federal explosives permit, which we will also make free. So really, you're getting a free explosives permit and a free cheesy bread to go with it.
Yes. I like that. I like that quite a bit. So one of the points, you kind of mentioned it. You're a fast talker and you talk a lot, and I love it because it's great for the show, but it's hard to remember some of the points that you bring up. But when we were messaging before,
sorry.
It's all good. It was that's my fault, but it's one of the things that I had asked about was getting the word out, and if this is the proper avenue for doing that because of the ideas that go along with it. And I think what you said just now was that people wouldn't listen if you weren't running for office. And that's what bugs me, is that not that, okay, so maybe it bugs me that you're using that to get people to listen because it reinforces the idea in their head that politicians should be taken seriously. And I know the idea of everything with Vermin's campaign and your campaign is all, joking and not serious and whatnot. But just that thing sticking out that, like, you'll knock and they'll be like, who the hell are you? And then you tell them, like, oh, okay, now I'll listen. So are you doing anything to negate that? What do you think about that? That's probably my biggest point of contention, is that it's lending legitimacy to the same system still.
And that is an excellent point. And the answer to it is, the way that I negate that is, as soon as I start talking to them, it's about how this entire system deserves ridicule and mockery, and how ultimately the reason we are running is to shed a light on that. And now there are different ways of doing that. There is an audience that is not only comfortable, but very excited to get that message from people who are talking about cheesy bread and talking about, wearing a boot on their head. Vermin and I are going to be speaking at Emerson College, which is one of the premier universities it's in Boston, but it's one of the premier universities in the U.S. for people that are getting into politics and communications. And when the professor was asking her students who they wanted to hear from, Vermin was one of the overwhelming people they wanted to hear from. These are people, a lot of them are going to be running for office. Wow. We are going to go there to crap all over the idea that, this is a legitimate system, and to talk about why we're talking about ponies and what the message behind that is. So that is a subversive way that we would not have gotten that attention if Vermin hadn't been out there with a boot on his head for the last 30 years. There's another group of people that isn't as receptive to a messaging that they could perceive as making fun of them. I've been doing these what we call pound the pavement tours, where we're actually going into marginalized communities, like housing projects, really, really like just neighborhoods that are the final logical conclusion of putting central planners in charge of everything. People that are living, honestly, they're living as agorists and don't even know it. They're all finding ways to get around the system. They're running unlicensed businesses. They're, not reporting taxes. They're using each other's kids as dependents to try to save his life. They're basically running mutual aid societies on top of state-run property. And when I go to them, I don't talk to them about badgers and cheesy bread. And I never wear a boot, but I don't go there and I have a stick with a pony head on it that I'll go places and carry it around like it's a giant wand or something and hold it out to get everyone's attention. And it's amazing. That actually stops traffic. I have stopped traffic with the pony stick, and they stop. And then I know they're thinking, what the hell did I just stop for a pony stick? But anyway, when I go into those communities, I don't do all that, because those are people that are going to wonder if I'm making fun of them.
Sure.
Am I showing up with a clown nose? Hey, oh, your situation sucks, honk, honk. And instead what I do there is a little bit more serious, but it's the same message. I go there and I knock on their door and I say, hi, my name's Spike Cohen. I'm running for vice president, and I want to talk to you about getting the police off your back so you can live a better life. And they come out, I would say probably 98% of the people whose doors I knocked on would at least talk to me for a few minutes. Some of them invited me in their house. Some of them came out. We got them to sign all sorts of petitions and things like that for local things that the government's harming people on and everything. And the bigger thing is, we actually told a group of people in overwhelmingly Democrat. I mean, these are neighborhoods that are essentially 100% black. These are people that if they vote, it's for Democrat, because every once in a while the Democrat Party might host a cookout or something. The Republicans completely ignore them, and they have no other. They don't think there's any other option, and probably 2/3 of them don't even vote. And I show up and tell them about, basically, honestly, most of the time I'm just reinforcing what they already knew. I'm just putting a name to it. I'm putting a name to it: anarchy, libertarianism. And I talk about anarchy. I talk about those things. And I tell people, I say, listen, I'm running for vice president, and if you want to vote for me, that's great. But I also want you to know there are people out here, libertarians and anarchists, who believe the same thing you do. And that there isn't, because 9 times out of 10, there was someone I spoke to. It was an older lady, probably in her 70s. And I said, I'm running for vice president. And she's one of you. One of us. She said, oh, I don't vote. I don't even think we should have a government. I said, I agree. And she kept the door open, and we talked for probably 15 minutes after that. So it takes all kinds of messaging, but ultimately, yes, there are people who would not open their door if I just said, or watch me on TV or whatever. They would not open themselves to me talking if I said, hi, I'm Spike Cohen, and I want to tell you that the government sucks, and we should ignore it, and we should engage in counter economics. But if I go up and say, hey, I'm Spike Cohen, I'm running for vice president, that gets attention. And it's wrong that it does. And you're correct in that. And I agree with you in that. But moving forward from that, my entire message is, and there's no reason that that should matter. And because people will say, well, what qualifies you? And I say, nothing qualifies me. Like, I have zero, no one has any qualification to tell you how to run your life. And I give a very strict, subversive, anarchist message. And if I end up on a ballot and they vote for me, that's a huge this to the system. And if they don't, that's fine too. At least they know that there's a word for it. And we've gotten them in contact with other people that believe the same thing. So if nothing else, we're building networks of people that agree on that.
I hope that puts a lot of people's minds at ease. That's a great explanation of it. We're gonna touch on some more points as well, but I like that a lot, because that was a question too. Is if you're spreading the idea to people who already, like you said, live in these communities, who are pretty much agorist, even if they don't know what that is, and reinforcing that and letting them know that, like, hey, if you can do this to the downfall of the government, that's even better. So that's great. That's a great idea to get out there. I guess my next question would be about the tax funding, because I'm not intimately familiar with the way that the Libertarian Party uses taxes or tax funded anything, how the money works with that. What are your feelings on that? How much of it is actually paid for by taxes? Do you reject that? Do you actually do more private fundraising? Do you accept anything like that?
So without getting into the weeds of, for example, there are people who would argue that using a conference center is using taxpayer money because the conference center gets corporate subsidies to, all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be able to answer that, because I'd have to know each place, sure, each venue that was used and all of that. It's looking like the Trump administration is considering a bailout for hotels because of the coronavirus, which means if we're staying at any hotels, and not just for this, but for anything, then we're taking taxpayer money, quote unquote. That aside, direct taxpayer money, as far as I know, none of the national nor state libertarian parties get any kind of taxpayer funding. Everything is done privately. There are a handful of states that allow third parties to get on the ballot for a primary. And I have personally said, what I've brought up to the Libertarian Party is, if we're trying to get our message out there and get people to vote for our candidates, let's completely subvert the system. Let's come up with our own privately funded public primary. We can be online, use a QR code and encryption and everything else, some kind of blockchain system, and have people, we tell them, hey, for only $15 to sign up for the state and national party, you can vote in our primary. There's no taxpayer funding. It's a dynamic system that doesn't rely on state ballot access laws or lawsuits or petitions or anything like that. And it allows us to do out-seeking messaging instead of, right now, the way our system is set up. I'll get into that in a minute, because that's really an in the weeds thing. Taxpayer funding. We do not get any taxpayer funding, as far as I know, in terms of the state or national parties. One of my problems is that the reason that you probably heard this too, 5%, we got to get that 5%. Mm-hmm. The reason that we want to get 5% is because that gets us minority party status. What that means is really two things. One, it means almost universal ballot access, so we're no longer having to spend like $1 million a year and all this time and energy with petitions for at least that 4-year election cycle. And in almost all the states, I believe, we just get on the ballot because we're now a minor party. We don't have to petition for it, which would be helpful for people that are trying to get on it. The other one is that public funding of candidates, which means that, and it's capped at a certain amount or whatever, but basically anyone running for federal office, or at least for president, it may not be for Congress and stuff, but at least for the president and vice president candidates, would get matching public funding up to however many $1 million. In my mind, anyone who accepts that is a hypocrite.
Yes.
And I don't know why, if that's what 5% gets us, I don't know why the hell we're even talking about that. Yes, it would be a victory for us to be considered a minor recognized party. Great. Why are we taking stolen money? And how are we not hypocrites by taking stolen money on a campaign of reducing or eliminating the amount of stolen money? How does that not sound to the average voter like, well, once we're in office, we're going to stop robbing you, but in the meantime, I just need this little bit so I can, do some internet ads. To me, that's total hypocrisy. And I know Vermin agrees with me on that. I would not accept it. I think that it is the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. I think that it feeds directly into the stereotype of the person that wants to change the system from the inside and almost instantly becomes the system the very second that they're even adjacent to it. And I just disagree with it completely. In my mind, what the real thing we should be shooting for is 15% in polling in these like telephone polls after we get the nomination. 15% gets us on the debate stage.
Right.
Who the hell would you want to debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump but Vermin Supreme?
Well, first of all, it would be hilarious. Second of all, he would wreck them because in preparation for this, I did watch the debates in part of the debates in Florida, I believe it was, and what a shit show, to be honest. But Vermin, I doubt anyone expected it, but he seemed to be the most calm and put together of just about anyone on that stage. It was pretty ridiculous.
He is,
and that was a question I had too, because
he is now. Let me
go ahead.
Let me just add this. For the Libertarian Party, who is our most skeptical audience, like when we go out into the public, when we were at the New Hampshire primaries and going to like the Bernie victory rally and the Tulsi rally and the Yang rally, we were universally loved and accepted. It's in Libertarian audiences, and it's because we're running for their party and they're looking at us like, what the hell are you doing?
Sure.
In that audience, Vermin is presenting himself in a much more, he's saying, listen, I'm not coming here to troll you guys. I'm coming here to explain why I'm going to go troll the system on your behalf. So he's taking off the boot. He's being more serious. In a debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, he's wearing the boot, and he's probably bringing a giant toothbrush on stage if they let him. And everyone's going to hear about the ponies. Like, he's going to be in full Vermin mode, which is what we need. Like, that's, if we're going to say that we're challenging the cult of the omnipotent state, how the hell do you challenge it by presenting options that look like it?
Right.
Why would you not present something that completely subverts that message? And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So I just wanted to add that in there.
No, yeah, it makes sense. And that's why, that's kind of what I was going to ask too, is that I've heard Vermin say on multiple occasions this time around that he's taking it seriously. This is a serious campaign this time. Is this different from before? Yes. And that is one of the red flags for me when he said, I'm taking it seriously, and, started being more serious. Right. What's that all about?
So serious means in contrast to how he's done it before. What he used to do was show up, and he lives just outside of New Hampshire. He would go to the New Hampshire primaries and say he was running for office, and I think he'd pay a small fee. It's easy to get on the New Hampshire ballot for president if you're running as a Democrat or a Republican. Not so much if you're a Libertarian, but for a Democrat and Republican, it's like a moderate filing fee. And so he'd file 1 year as a Democrat, 1 year as a Republican, 1 year as a Democrat, one year as a Republican, and he would go and basically do his thing, show up and do his shtick, and go out on the streets with his ponies and his entourage with him, with all their fake ponies and their signs and toothbrushes, and pouring glitter on homophobic politicians, and getting on these lesser known debates and all this stuff, and just making an entire mockery of the system. And that was it. All he did was in New Hampshire. And there were times he came in like third and stuff like that, running an entirely satire-based, I'm not leaving New Hampshire, I'm not going to go to South Carolina after this and contest their ballot or whatever. Like, I'm literally just in New Hampshire crapping on everything and telling everyone what a joke this is. When he says he's running a serious campaign this time, what we mean is we're actually contesting the election. Right? Like, we're actually trying to get the third largest party in the United States nomination to run for president, and to try to get on the debate stage with the main candidates, and to go to do a 50 state or as many states as we can visit, press tour, and like do an actual run. Mm-hmm. But the entirety of that run is to mock the fact that people are traveling the country to say why they should be the one with a gun to your head telling you what to do, and robbing you to pay for the whole thing, and killing people in your name, and running up debt in your name, and forcing you to use a currency that they're constantly printing out endless reams of, that devalues the value of the currency that they force on you, and all of that. We're saying, hey, how much less absurd or more absurd is it that he's wearing a boot and we're talking about cheesy bread and badgers and ponies and everything else? How much and shining a spotlight to people who are going to wake up from that zombification and be like, oh wow, this whole thing's a fucking joke. Like, this whole thing is a joke. Mm-hmm. And so it is serious in that we're actually contesting the election. It is still the same. It is just taking what he's been doing to the next level of saying, of actually putting it in the faces of America, which incidentally, if we actually get the nomination, that's all the media is going to be able to talk about. Mm-hmm. And they're going to fall for their own trap that they set for us, because the whole reason they're going to say it is, look at this joke, look at this stupid thing. Let's go interview them so we can talk about how dumb they are. And then we'll be there saying, yeah, it is dumb, and so is the rest of this.
Right.
And making them look foolish for engaging us and asking us stupid questions about, well, how are you going to pay for the ponies? The ponies are free. Yeah. The ponies are free. Well, where are you going to get them from? We have people ask us, reporters. I had a reporter in this very room come in, local news, and say, well, how are you going to pay for the ponies? And I'm like, the ponies are free. And they said, well, where do the free ponies come from? I said, you need me to tell you where ponies come from? And so I said, listen, when a mommy pony and a daddy pony love each other, they share a special pony hug, and then something like 11 to 13 months later, a free pony comes out. What do you want from me? So this is so serious in the extent that we're actually contesting an election with an actual political party, right. But it's still the same message that this is all a joke. That this is a giant, this is voting for Vermin Supreme and Spike Cohen for president and vice president is the equivalent of going to the voting booth and shouting "Okay, Boomer" at the top of your lungs, mm-hmm. and smashing the absolute most ridiculous option on the ballot.
Okay, and so that's the thing. That's another thing too, is that Trump and Biden are they're kind of crowding your style here with how absolutely ridiculous they've been lately, especially Biden. And I'm really disappointed that my favorite line from him, that he didn't use it on a debate stage with Vermin Supreme, and that's calling someone a dog-faced pony soldier. What better insult?
A lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Write it down. Take that one. Fuck IP. Vermin needs to steal that from Joe Biden and and make a run with it.
We have memes. No, we've had memes where we've said no, Joe Biden, we are honest dog-faced pony soldiers, and we were doing that in New Hampshire. People were eating it up. It was like how we were trolling Pete Buttigieg and following him around and saying that he had taken our IP, that Vermin Supreme was boothead head, and that he had stolen it and made it boot edge or something like that. And so we actually, everywhere we went, people would start chanting "boot head," and we would go "boot head," and I had my pony stick, and we're all like "boot head," and like this was all over. I was so energized leaving New Hampshire, realizing that so many people in this country think this entire thing is a damn joke. Mm-hmm. And to give them the opportunity to say, yeah, we think it's a joke too. We're totally in on the joke. Let's show these people just how much of a joke it is. Mm-hmm. Are we going to win president and vice president? Yes. If we don't, in the odd chance that we don't, then at the very least, we will have shown just how many people are completely disgusted with the system, which allows us to then feed into our continued subversive message of, you don't need any of this. We can start building communities that are voluntary, and that, we don't need to engage in this. And for as long as they make us engage of it, we can keep crapping on it and telling them how much what we think of it by voting for increasingly absurd candidates until we've essentially built opt-out networks enough to the point that we're as free as we can possibly be.
Sure. And it seems like, the message is targeted at people who vote or still think voting is necessary and whatnot. It's almost, of course, completely unnecessary for people with a name like NonVotingNick or, anarchist agorists, all that kind of stuff, to feel like we're being targeted by this in any way, as far as, come vote for Vermin. And it's a point of contention that a lot of people have, and, they're saying, well, they're still engaging with the system. I don't know. It's probably unpopular with a lot of the audience, but I don't see a problem with it, especially after you've, described your feelings on taxes and what you're actually doing here, and not accepting, whatever that 5% gets you and stuff like that. It's hard for me to put the anarchist label on it still, just because it's within the party, but I like the messaging,
and I get it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm not here to try to get, listen, if anyone wants to vote for me, great. Like, I'm not going to stop you from voting for me. I'm here to tell you that we're not here to try to, do just the libertarianism of, well, maybe this much government, or, well, we're going to get rid of government, but first we got to try to do this and do that. And I respect people who, and we can talk about this, the idea of defensive voting and defensive legislation or whatever. I respect people who are trying that. I respect people who are trying to do anything to make us more free tomorrow than we are today, even if I don't completely agree with what they're doing. I can tell you that my purpose in this is to reach out to people who otherwise would not have listened to me and tell them, yes, this is a joke. It is run by clowns. We are no less clowns than the clowns who, like you said, Trump and Biden are muscling in on our routine unironically. And it will be so easy for us to make a mockery of them because they make a mockery of themselves. And the difference is that their punchline ends in countless dead people around the world, including here. Countless people put in cages for victimless crimes or railroaded. We just saw where Nathaniel Woods was executed for being a conspirator in killing police officers, even though the shooter said he had nothing to do with it, and that which wasn't allowed in his trial. The actual shooter's testimony that he killed, that he didn't have anything to do with it, wasn't allowed. And the only evidence that was presented was that one of the surviving police officers said that Nathaniel swore at them earlier in the day. So literally, someone was executed a couple days ago for swearing at police officers. Not killed in the heat of passion in the moment, not that that would have made it any better. Held, tried, put in a cage for 20 years, had numerous petitions sent to courts, and even had an hour-long stay from the Supreme Court, and was ultimately executed on the strength of the fact that he swore at someone.
Right.
So, in that kind of system, the idea that you're going to get justice out of a system like that is a joke.
No, they're just going to do whatever they want. And that's something I wanted to bring up too, that kind of ties in with getting on the debate stage with Trump and Biden and whoever. And I think there's an article that came out, I don't know, what is today, the 7th, the 8th, whatever it is. It came out March 7th, but it's Tulsi Gabbard being booted from the next debate because they changed the rules, after she had won.
Right. Yeah.
The right to be on the stage the first time, or the right, whatever that is, but won the ability to be on the stage.
You've been hanging out with me too much. You're hanging out with me too much. Now you think people have a right to be on a debate stage.
Right. Yeah. But they're just going to do whatever they want. They're going to change it last minute, however, to let whoever they want up there and keep whoever they don't want off there. And it's amazing to me. I was talking with Daniel Johnson, who hosts Hot Tokes with me, about it. And it's just, how do people not see this? And so that's good that your campaign is letting people see that. But so what happens when you guys get that 15% of the polling you need to get on the stage, and all of a sudden the rules are changed? What's your guys' response?
Our response is, look at the joke. Like, look at the joke of the system that we have. They said that you had to do this, and we did it. And because it's clear that they want you to realize that there's only one of two choices, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, look what they've done. And keep in mind, if we've gotten 15% in polling, which I think is eminently possible, I truly believe if we get the nomination with the sheer amount of attention that the media will try to give us to try to make us look like a joke, and we'll be able to turn it around on them, I think we'll easily hit 15%. And when they have to, publicly, in front of and like I said, if we get 15% in the polls, that means everyone's paying attention. Everyone's paying attention if we get 15%, or at least enough people are paying attention if we're getting 15% in the polls, because most people are not going to be okay with it. Right. But so in light of that, if they change that, that just underscores that they've changed things. Now, and we'll see that, that they don't allow other options, and that, this whole idea of you being free. How are you free if you're only given two options? Right. And they both suck. And no matter who wins, you're subjected to it. The whole pattern of, well, if you vote and your candidate wins, well, then you can't complain because you got what you wanted. If you vote and your candidate doesn't win, then you can't complain because the people have spoken. And next time you just have to campaign harder. And if you don't vote, well, then you can't complain because you didn't have your say. There's a pattern there. No matter what you do and no matter what happens, shut up about complaining. You can't complain. All you can do is participate in this absurd system of choosing rulers where really you're not choosing because they're basically giving you your pre-fed choices. So it would highlight that. The best case scenario is me and Vermin Supreme, debating for president and vice president. The very next best case scenario is them shutting us out and people seeing what they do, that they just keep ratcheting it up until you're only left with two garbage options. Sure. So that would be our response.
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, the debate, I think, is the best focus you can have, because I was going to go back to the idea that we discussed of some candidates and people with defensive voting, maybe whatever you want to, any of those, type of actions where they're trying to repeal the state through whatever they can repeal locally, federally, who knows what. I think somebody did the math, and it would take something like 10,000 years to repeal everything because of the rate at which it all works, the official routes you have to go through to do it. So that's one of my biggest problems with defensive voting, or voting in serious candidates, quote unquote, to start repealing stuff, because it's never going to make a dent in this. It's a drop in the bucket.
And I get that. And like I said, I lean towards I always forget if it's agorist or agorist, but I lean towards the idea that like what George Carlin said, that if voting worked, they wouldn't let you do it. Mm-hmm. And the proof of that is that anytime something, let's go back to Tulsi Gabbard for a second. Mm-hmm. This is someone who is a down the line big government progressive, right? She she wants gun control, she wants universal health care, she wants all of the things that are some of the most big government iterations of what's in the Overton window right now, except she doesn't want war.
Right.
And not even all war. She just wants, to end what she considers non-defensive wars. This is a very small slice off of what is currently being done. And she wants to grow so many other parts of the government. And that's been ruled completely unacceptable. The whole point of that is that you have government and corporate, government sponsored media which are all essentially the same organization, that are constantly restricting your options. They let you hear it for a split second, but then they tie you back in and go, no, we have to be pragmatic. We have to defeat Donald Trump. And on the other side, they go, we have to defeat Joe Biden. And it's like, okay, but I don't like either of these options. Mm-hmm. And they create these cults of personality, like with Bernie, like with Trump, like even with Tulsi. And in doing so, they just feed into this whole idea that we need to vote for our betters to rule over us. Right. But our betters are also going to constantly be constricting your choices. And so, yeah, I mean, my thought with defensive voting is this, and I talked to you about this. We all recognize that the justice system, they shouldn't even call it that it's every bit as much of a joke. Mm-hmm. The police do what they want to you. The courts decide what they want to do to you. It often is decided by how much money you have, what your skin color is, what your ethnicity is, how popular you are in the community. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of factors that have absolutely nothing to do with your innocence and guilt that factor into how they treat you, whether you're found guilty, and then if you're found guilty, how they treat you afterwards. And yet, very few of us would say that it is a bad idea to get a defense attorney, even a public defense attorney if you can't afford your own defense attorney. Here are the similarities between that and voting. And these are not the same thing. So I'm not trying to say if you would hire a defense attorney, then you have to vote too. I'm just pointing out the similarities. They are both systems that you have no control over. They are both systems that are mandatory. You don't have to like them, but the decision is going to be made either way, and your life will be impacted regardless of whether you participated or not. They will use whatever level of violence is necessary to bring you into compliance with whatever they've decided. And there is a option that allows you to even remotely stifle what they're trying to do. I'm friends with a lady, Catherine Bernard in Georgia, who is a defense attorney, who is going around and basically using jury nullification to nullify drug convictions, to the point where now she's done such a good job with it that the state of Georgia, when they find out she's the defense attorney on these drug cases, they just drop the charges because they don't want to create any court precedent that will basically nullify the war on drugs in Georgia.
Right.
If there were enough people like her out in other states, that would end the drug war. Conversely, or in the same token, there's an argument, and I'm not even 100% sure where I stand on it, but I'm willing to support people who want to take their time to try, that if you could get enough legislators in, you could curb or stop that, using the same idea that, yes, you are engaging in the taxpayer or funded, stolen money funded system, but you're doing it in a defensive way to try to stop or even if you're not voting for a politician, you may just get people together to vote to strike down a increase in a tax, or to vote to get rid of a tax, or to vote to add something to the state charter that doesn't allow income taxes or something like that, or to stop a new school bond, or to stop some new spending or law or whatever. If you choose not to do it because you think that it's hopeless, or that they're going to ignore your decision if it doesn't go their way anyway, I totally get that. If you decide that it's at least worth a shot to try to get people to vote for it, or to vote for this person who says that they're going to stop government from doing these things, I say the worst case scenario is it didn't work. And I totally get the people that say it's not worth it. I say, if you try it, then, and it didn't work, then it didn't work. And maybe you learn a lesson that it's not going to work. Right. But ultimately we're more interested in running a subversive campaign to alert people of the fact that what they innately know to be true, that there's something wrong with this, is true. Just because they're not ever hearing it in corporate media or from government, what they know inside is true. There's something wrong with this. There's no reason that this has to be this way, and there is a better way.
Sure. And the comparison to a defense attorney is probably the best one I've heard. It's much better than, a gun to the head comparison. You're forced to vote that way, because that's absolutely not true. You don't have a gun to your head that says
you're not forced to vote. Yeah.
And so the thing with defensive voting, and that I realize now, even with the defense attorney comparison, it's kind of the same as, making sure Tulsi can't go on the stage. They're going to change it, despite if the rules were followed. If the votes made a difference, they're going to find a way to get around it. And my favorite thing to bring up,
of course,
it's the state of Washington, and for 85 years, people have been voting down an income tax. And so now, recently, they've said, we want to do a closed door vote of the people in King County, the legislators in King County, and people can't vote on it. That's one thing they're considering. But people don't realize that they're recouping that money that they would have gotten through income tax by taxing you to have a Discover Pass, to park your car, to walk in the woods or go fishing or anything like that. Taxes on everything else all around you. It doesn't make a shit bit of difference. And so therefore, going outside of that system, ignoring it, and being prepared to defend yourself when you do, seems like a smarter option to me. And as far as the defense attorney, as far as courts and things like that, that reminds me a bit of some things going on with the Bundy Ranch situation. It's been a minute since I've read this, but I believe the situation was they wanted to dismiss the case. I can't remember on what grounds, but it would allow them to reopen it later, because they did it this way. They wanted to get rid of it and come back and do it
if the laws change, right?
Exactly, yeah. So either way, they're going to do whatever the fuck they want. So get out of it, build your own system, but most importantly, be prepared to fucking defend yourself, which is where we go with the idea of Boogaloo, or even just personal Boogaloo. It doesn't have to be a massive Boogaloo. Get people together, get a network, so when those guys with guns come, you can defend yourself, because otherwise they're going to do whatever they want, just like they do all the time.
Yeah. Building mesh networks and mutual aid networks and illegalist societies that are completely subverting the system. I'm 100% for people doing all of that stuff. I want to bring people into that. I want to add the roles of the people that are doing that. And I've had my show. I've had my show that I have primarily, when I did my show, I didn't really reach out in anarchist circles, and because I didn't just want an anarchist echo chamber where I have my anarchist agitprop show to add to, many other great shows like yours and others that are out there spreading this message to people who already agree. Sure. Like there is a good thing for that, but I have been actually promoting it in conservative and progressive circles, in like my social circles that are like Latin dance and like stuff that have nothing to do with politics. By the way, I'm an accomplished Latin dancer. Ooh, you don't have to believe that, but it's true. It's true. You don't have to believe it. It's very sexy. I'm an incredibly sexy man. But anyway, I'm a sexy man. Like you may not believe that from looking at me, but once you get past how I look, I'm a good dancer. Anyway, all that to say, if for no other reason, you should vote for me because I'm a great dancer. No, but I reached out to people that have nothing to do politically to give them what was basically a funny show that also delves into politics. And I've been able to convert a lot of people with that show. this idea was sort of a natural conclusion when Vermin and his team reached out to me and asked me to be his running mate. And my initial response was, I don't think I want to run for office. And then I realized something. I'm running for office with Vermin Supreme. I'm running for office with someone who has been making fun of this system since I was like 8 or 10 or something. Actually, no, before that, because he was running for mayor of Baltimore in 87. So like since I was like 5, this guy has been out telling everyone that this system is a total joke and should not be taken seriously. And I thought, how better to use humor and goodwill to spread a message that this entire system should be made fun of. That, again, your innate belief. I keep telling people, you innately know something is wrong. When you complain about how the government treats you, no one likes getting pulled over. No one likes and says, oh, well, I got pulled over and it was to correct me. And man, I'm glad that I was corrected like that. You know, you'll say that you were glad that your parents taught you not to do something wrong, but you never say, oh, I'm glad I was pulled over and fined and, you know, tased and whatever. Like, people realize there's something wrong with this. And I'm simply approaching them from that statist vote for me to rule over you system and say, yeah, no, you're right. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing right about this. You are absolutely correct. Innately, there is something wrong with this. And there's a better way. And here's how to do it. And, you know, all of the false promises and all of the cheesy bread and the ponies and all of that stuff all feeds into the same thing. I am just another person who is offering you a bunch of ridiculous, absurd things and telling you that innately there's something wrong with the idea that you are sitting here in front of your TV, listening to me promise this stuff and deciding if I'm the person who should rule over you is no more absurd than when you do it for any of these other losers. And the difference being that I don't actually want to hurt you, and they do. And so if we're going to build these networks, if we're going to have any hope to actually, and there's disagreement among people in anarchist communities, whether there's actually a way to get rid of the state or we just have to try to live outside of it as much as possible. If there's any hope to do either of those things, it's going to take less and less people believing government has proper authority and more people recognizing that it doesn't. And so I'm using, you know, one of many different approaches in the dragnet way of approaching things to bring people into the reality that no, there's no reason for this.
Right. No, and you brought up a very good point about, you know, talking within the circles versus talking outside of it. And that's something that's come up and been very frustrating for me with the show, because I kind of have worked myself into this niche of anarchist, but I've started kind of holding anarchist office hours at the local bar, I call them, to myself privately because I think it's funny, but just talking to anybody who wants to talk about it. And I think I've reached more people doing that than I have reached people not familiar with it on the show. So maybe fans of the Pod-Stash will start seeing something like that. But I like that that idea, and it's the thing that,
and by the way, I don't want to, sorry, real quick. I don't want to, I hope you don't think that I'm not insulting what you're doing or deriding it. There is a good purpose to it. It is good for iron to sharpen iron. It is good for us to get that, you know, regular reminder that we're not nuts, that the other 97% of people out there that we think are statists aren't correct. And, you know, that we're the, you know, maybe it is us, maybe we are the wrong ones. It's good to get that reinforcement and to get that, you know, you had the debate between the Boogaloo and the non-Boogaloo people and all that. Like, it's good to have these things. It's good to have that inward thing. I just felt like that was already covered.
Right.
Like you and others who are doing it already have that covered. Like, you're already doing a great job with it. So I wanted to get more out to people who are like talking about how, you know, well, at least with Donald Trump, he's not going to, I don't know, whatever they think Donald Trump's going to do to protect them as opposed to Joe Biden, or, well, at least with Joe Biden, he's not going to, whatever they think he's going to, which he absolutely will do. If Trump's doing it, Biden will do it. And if Biden's doing it, Trump will do it. But getting to those people who think that, but also realize deep down that something's wrong with this picture, but aren't hearing any reinforcement of that. So no, what you do is absolutely necessary. It's great that you're also reaching out to people, but it is, you know, it takes all kinds. Like, it takes all different approaches to get people in it and to keep them there. And this is one of many that are being tried, and I'm having a blast doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It just brought up some thoughts I've been having. Like you said, the iron sharpening iron, that gets wearing and it gets old.
Yeah.
And I'd rather talk to, new people who need to even forge the blade,
Normies, yeah.
To start with. And I think the best description of the Libertarian Party I've gotten from a few people is that it's the pipeline from statist to anarchy. And the problem I have with that is the people who stick around there and want to run the serious candidates and stuff that we've had discussions on already. The people who get caught up in there because of people who want to stay there and do that is the main, association problem with the Libertarian Party that I see, and probably the main sticking point for a lot of anarchists when they look at it.
Here's the thing. I am going to stick around the Libertarian Party as long as I can use it as a way of subverting, again, what the charter says, what the statement of principles or whatever says, or the beginning of, I think it's the beginning of the platform, or wherever it says it, that our purpose is to challenge the cult of the omnipotent state. If that's what we're doing, I'm here to do it. If what we're doing is, and I realize like we're not going to kick out people who disagree with us, but if the overwhelming consensus becomes there that no, our role is actually to become the state, so that then it won't be an omnipotent state, and then we can take little bites out of it or whatever. That's not really what I'm here for.
Right.
What I'm here for is to challenge the cult of the omnipotent state, and to use this party, which yes, the purpose of a political party is to contest and to try to win elections. And if I'm elected, or if I'm nominated to be vice president, and Vermin's nominated to be president or whatever, then ultimately I'm going to be trying to get as many votes as possible, but not at the expense of the message. I will be trying to get as many votes as possible by convincing people that they don't need any of this.
Right.
And that is a stark difference between me and some that are in the party. And I won't agree with them. I respect what they think, and I respect what they're trying to do. I just think they need to step back and wonder, well, how, if we're even willing to accept taxpayer money to try to get there, what other things are we going to be willing to accept once we get there? Right. What laws are we going to be willing to sign to extend or to expand upon if it means, some other compromise that we think we're going to get? How quickly do we become a Rand Paul who is voting, for warmongers to be appointed to the CIA, people that he himself said were terrible people that should never be in that position? How quickly do we go from being, the anarchist rabble rouser to being Rand Paul? And I don't want to be a Rand Paul. I want to be someone who is here to tell people, fuck the state, and that we don't need it. And if the Libertarian Party is an effective tool to use people's belief that they should be listening to what politicians have to say to subvert that idea, then I'll be here for that, as long as I'm here.
And that's probably the most respectful thing about it. That's the message I respect the most from people like you within the Libertarian Party. And we're here to catch the people that you can funnel out of statism along to getting behind the Boogaloo and
correct,
getting even more extreme. Let's make some more extremists. That's what I like. But we're coming up on the end of the hour, man. You got anything you want to close with? Anything you want to plug? Anything like that?
I got to, do I have time to share my platform? It takes about 4 minutes.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, so I have my platform. When I, like I said, I believe that we need to be, transitioning to anarchy, but I recognize that, maybe in the meantime, we need to compromise and we need to, make compromises on our principles, with sociopaths who, want to enslave all of us. And that is an effective way to make incremental pragmatic changes, that you and your offspring will be able to see. And to that end, I have unleashed my verbal agreement for an even better America. This builds upon Vermin's 4-point platform of free ponies, zombie power for all, mandatory toothbrushing, and killing baby Hitler, expanding it into a 14-point platform. Nick, that is a 350% platform increase in the short period of time that I've been a part of this campaign. This platform is a verbal agreement between me and you, the American people, and I pledge that all of these things will happen in the first 100 days of our administration, or else I will resign and be replaced with Baby Yoda. Number one, we are going to eliminate all federal taxes, tariffs, tariffs and fees and replace them with a lottery where the winner will get to sign the Constitution and the face of a politician of their choice. And it won't just be like Sharpie. It'll be like one of those permanent tattoo things where it's like on their face forever. So if you picture like whenever Mitch McConnell gets afraid and his pooch comes out and it says Nick on it, we could have that. We could have that in our time. Number two, again, we are also going to go back in time and kill baby Woodrow Wilson, which ultimately makes killing baby Hitler unnecessary. But we're still going to do that anyway because fuck that guy. Number three is, of course, full legalization of recreational plutonium. As I said before, we are going to be giving you unlimited zombie power. Well, once the zombies are providing us with all the power that we and our future, our progeny could ever possibly want, the next logical question is, what about all these nuclear plants that we've been using? What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with all of that plutonium? And the answer, of course, is whatever you want. It's your body. Just stay away from me for the next 35,000 years. Number four, of course, is free cheesy bread with the purchase of any federal explosives permit. And again, those permits are going to be free. So this is really just a backdoor way to get both the ability to use explosives and cheesy bread. A lot of people have said, hey, wait a second. Neither of those things sound very, they don't sound very libertarian, giving people a free lunch because, you know, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. How are you giving them cheesy bread and also making them apply for a permit to get an explosive? Why shouldn't they just be able to get an explosive? And the answer, of course, is that don't eat the bread for lunch. Have it for maybe dinner or a brunch, something nice. Then that way we are keeping with Tanstaffel. And then also, obviously, if we're giving it to you for free, basically you're just saying that you're going to be getting an explosive and we're fine with that. And this is, again, this is compromise legislation. You know, I can't just go to Congress and say, we're going to let everyone have explosives. But if I make it into an entitlement plan, now we're getting somewhere. Number five is developing bullets that, instead of harming you, do helpful things like relieve sinus congestion and clear up headaches, thereby finally bending the cost curve on healthcare in this country once and for all. Number six is, this is a fan favorite. I think you guys are going to like this too. We're going to require all police officers to sing the Barney theme song to anyone they arrest, along with their Miranda rights. And the suspect will have to be released without charge if the officer is not able to sing the entire song in key, or if at any point does not portray themselves as a convincing Barney, which of course means they have to wear the outfit. They have to say the voice. If at any point, and this is a powerful civil liberties tool, if at any point the officer breaks character at all, then you say, officer, I'm not feeling Barney anymore, and they have to let you go. So they have to wear the thing, and they have to go, hey, stop right there. And they got to, you know, wobble after you and everything, like the whole thing. And if at any point they fail, you're out of there. Again, this is, you know, we can't, if we're not going to end the police state, let's make it cuddly. Let's make it hard for them to hurt you because they're just wearing so much padding. And plus they're going to overheat because it's like really hot in there. Number seven, of course, is retrofitting your ponies with 20 millimeter Vulcan cannons, #arm the ponies. We already talked about that. This is and as an addition to that, any gun that you have, we are going to take it from you. And we're going to give you back a way better gun. So like if we take like, you know, a pistol, if we take like a 9mm from you, we're giving you back like the finest 9mm, or you can ask for something else. You want a grenade launcher or something, we'll give you that. So we are a pro Second Amendment campaign here. Number 8 is a Waffle House on every single corner in this country. And now as the head of the Libertarian Party Waffle House caucus, I have been accused of this being some kind of cronyism or graft to help my caucus to have more Waffle Houses. That is a bald-faced lie. I completely resent it. That is a slanderous accusation. This is a jobs program, and it is also about lowering the cost of food because, as we know, if there are more competitors in the market, then that reduces the cost of things. And so if you can literally go to a Waffle House anywhere on every corner, it's also going to be a jobs program to help find homes for all the people whose homes are demolished to make more Waffle Houses. Number 9 is impeaching every member of the Supreme Court and replacing them with the janitor. His name is Reginald, and he will be our king. And then number 10 is, it's just a badger.
It's a badger.
It's literally just a badger. Just a badger.
No more explanation needed. Just a badger. I love it.
Thank you. Finally, someone who gets it.
I like badgers, man.
It's just a badger.
Say no more.
People say, explain the badger to me. I say, you need me to explain the badger to you? It's a badger.
Yeah, who doesn't know what that is? Either way, whether it's a honey badger, European badger, North American badger, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking badger.
we'll let a ferret slip through. Anything from the Mustele or whatever family, really. But we'll call it a badger. A skunk, I don't care. But really, yes. Honey badgers. People say, what about a honey badger? I go, is a honey badger a badger? Yeah. Then yes.
And you know what?
It's just a badger.
We're bordering on too much explanation here anyways. So let's not even go
Thank you. It's just a badger.
Yep. It's a fucking badger. On that note, thanks for coming on, man. Hopefully I can get you to stick around for 5 or 10 more minutes for Patreon content, a little after hours. I hope everybody found that enlightening. If you didn't think I grilled him hard enough, if you have more questions, make sure to add them in the comments or on Facebook, wherever you find the Dank Pod-Stash, and we'll see if we can get some more burn marks on Spike. And all right, everybody. Thanks a lot.
I do hope you found that enlightening.
Yeah.
I hope you found that. I also hope you found all of that very enlightening. Thank you.
I think it was. So remember, everybody, total freedom.
Thank you.
No exceptions. Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash is sponsored by Anarchy Lifting. Go to anarchyliftingcoaching.com to learn more.